I want to thank everyone for coming out today. I'm just overwhelmed by the crowd that I see on behalf of the MLK breakfast. We have a nice lineup here this morning for you. We're going to start things off with a welcome from our president, President Haas. If you could come at this time, and let's give him a hand.
Thank you, Bobby. I think we would be remiss if we didn't start off this morning with a moment of silence and reflect on the tragedy that happened to our neighbors to the south of us. And to me, it was a tragedy, but out of that, we hope with the collective arms of the world around Haiti that they can grow and again prosper. So let's take a moment and reflect on those that have lost their lives and are affected by this tragedy. Thank you. And if you could keep everyone who's been affected by that tragedy in your hearts today and in the upcoming weeks as well. Thank you. Well, I say hello to our friends over in Grand Rapids, and I'm glad that we can use the technology to bring us close together as we celebrate the life and the legacy of Martin Luther King. I'm so appreciative of the participation and involvement of our students, of our faculty, and our staff as we celebrate his life. I know that many do close today, but I think we can stay open by remembering Dr. King, and with that memory, providing an opportunity like this to come together. And as Bobby said, I am thrilled with this first breakfast that we have together here in memory of Dr. King. It's not only a time to reflect on the past, however, as we do remember him, but also look ahead and continue to understand the challenges that we are all faced as we create a better world together, as Dr. King would want us to do. I know here on this campus we've made great strides in our understanding of acceptance and of appreciation of community that values diversity in its truest sense as part of our environment and our culture. Because what we do in appreciating diversity and inclusion is create an atmosphere and a learning environment for all of us to learn in and from and help our students succeed. Our mission is clear in that regard. Our mission is very clear because we do want to establish our policies internally that foster the notion of inclusiveness, but again, even more importantly, to create that culture that helps our students succeed while they're here. And from that success, they will be very, very successful then in their lives and in their professions when they leave Grand Valley State University. In 1963, I was 12 years old, and I had a trip from New York, where I grew up. My dad was a New York policeman, and we wanted to go down to Florida. First time that we ventured out of New York. I was 12, my brother was 9, my sister was 4 years old, and we wanted to make our way down to Florida. But as we were stopping in North Carolina to get some gas, I noted this sign, this set of signs, whites only, colored only. And I wondered why. I did not experience that growing up on Staten Island, but maybe I did, but it wasn't as clear and obvious as it was then to me in 1963. Well, now we fast forward till today. And you know, we still have black and white, Democrats, Republicans, liberals and conservatives, east and west, rich and poor, gay and straight, Christian, Jew, Muslim, Fox and CNN, and young and old. But I think what we have yet to understand is that through those differences, we seek to alienate. We're not seeking to come together. But through our understanding of diversity as a concept, understanding that we all have these experiences that we need to share with one another, regardless of the background and perspectives we have. In fact, that's very, very healthy. But not to focus in on what alienates us, but through that experience, what brings us together. The whole notion of inclusion. I think, and we must, in keeping with the legacy of Dr. King, is we must focus in on those characteristics that hold us together and recommit ourselves, understanding the great celebration of differences. But through those differences, understand that we can come together stronger if we understand what holds us together, and that is respect of each other and of self. Integrity, our family, education, and a sense of spirituality. And I think above all is the optimism that we can share together for a better world for our children and our children's children. And I see that now as I now have 4 granddaughters, and when we're on Skype, they're away, 2 of them in Quebec, 2 of them in Alaska. But you know, there's not anything better than seeing in their faces and in their words of a 5-year-old or a 3-year-old or a 2-year-old or a 4-month-old of the optimism for a better future. That is what Dr. King was sharing with us. It's not those differences that alienate, it's the differences that bring us together. He taught us to appreciate and respect the history and tradition and culture of all people. And at Grand Valley State University, we will continue to work to empower our students to be active learners, just as today. Let me end with these words from Dr. King. The function of education is to teach one to think intensively and to think critically. Intelligence plus character. That's the goal of true education. So I hope that you will join us today for the Silent March this afternoon and for the keynote address by Dr. Randall Pickett at the Fieldhouse. Thank you all for coming, and I'll move the program along. God bless.
Thank you, President Haas. Now I would like to bring up 2 of our students here at Grand Valley State University. These 2 students are special, and the reason why I say that, this was our first year having our first MLK Day of Service, and they led this charge this past Saturday. We did work over at the Methodist Community House, and we also had some high school students who participated as well. And I would like to bring up to the podium at this time Gregory Copeland and Tova Mays.
Good morning, everyone. My name is Tova Mays. I'm from Flint, Michigan, and my major is public and nonprofit administration with an emphasis on community development.
Good morning, everyone. My name is Greg Copeland. I'm from Inkster, Michigan. My major is public administration with an emphasis on budgeting and financing.
And we are this year's Campus Engagement Fellows for Grand Valley State University. This Saturday, myself, Greg, Bumi Fatishay from the Center of Service Learning, and Bobby Springer had the great opportunity to spearhead and coordinate a day of service this Saturday at the United Methodist Community House. This day of celebration is one that is to be celebrated all over the country, and Grand Valley students and staff had the wonderful opportunity to engage in this day of service. The participants for this event were Grand Valley State students and high school students from the 4 local high schools here in Grand Rapids, Crescent, Union, Central, and Ottawa Hills. And these students were a part of the Gilbert program, which is a program that is offered through the Grand Valley University and into the high schools. The event, like I said, it took place at the United Methodist Community House in Grand Rapids, Michigan. The day began with breakfast. We then had a speech by Grand Valley's own Dr. Rick Stevens, and then it was time for service. The students and the high school students and Grand Valley students were integrated into groups where they had an opportunity to work together in community service. They cleaned hallways, classrooms, and offices while talking about Martin Luther King and having a chance to have any questions asked and answered about college with the Grand Valley students. After the day of service, which was, the community service event, which took 2 hours, they came back and reconvened for lunch, and they continued their conversation about college and Martin Luther King. After lunch, we had a reflection, which was called A Walk with Dr. King. And during this reflection, the students had a chance to talk about and look at specific points that Martin Luther King had done within his life and apply those to their own life. The purpose of this activity was to apply major events and for them to have a chance to see how they as well can impact their community, much like Dr. King. This day was a day of joy and pride because less than 100 years ago, African Americans and whites couldn't even drink from the same water fountain, let alone go to the same school. And on this Saturday, the color barriers were broken and unity and servitude were at the forefront. There are some students who are here. If you see the Martin Luther King t-shirts, those were from our event from this Saturday, and there are some students that participated in this event that are here today. I truly believe that Martin Luther King would have been truly proud of us on this Saturday. I would like to end with a quote from him. Life's most persistent and urgent question is, what are you doing from others? And that is a quote from Dr. Martin Luther King. Thank you.
Thank you. I was given the honor to share with you a brief explanation of what the Martin Luther King Jr. National Holiday means to me. The Martin Luther King Jr. National Holiday is a day for promise. A promise that we all are great and can accomplish anything that we set our minds to and believe in. Dr. King was truly more than a man, he was a king. He was birthed into a society full of chaos, racism, and inequality, but through his courage and desire to make peace, he could only envision greatness. Dr. King showed me through his example that in order to be great, we all must see great. On this day of celebration and honor, we must see the King in ourselves and all others around us to fulfill his dream. Dr. King may not physically be here on earth anymore, but his spirit remains with us forever. I saw Dr. King this past Saturday. He showed up at the Martin Luther King Day of Service as his smile rested on all the volunteers who took their time to give back to their community. His heart beat life as brothers and sisters of all races united to act on change by serving in their community. His voice rang loud as the voices of the participants united as they shared their dreams and desires for the world during the event's reflections. His spirit is everywhere around us, but we must believe in it and remember its purpose. Success should not be measured by personal wealth, gain, and glory, but instead in what we have done for others. Dr. King once said that he who was greatest among us shall be a servant. Dr. King served this nation with a life dedicated to gaining equality, peace, and justice for all those who were denied these rights. I ask you today that what will you do to ensure that this dream is kept alive? I encourage everyone today to honor Dr. King and each other through servanthood. Remember on this day the struggle and fight of our ancestors and what was done to get each and every one of us here today. We must honor them with our lives dedicated to looking ahead and creating a world of hope for all mankind. It is not what one can gain for themselves, but the power we all can receive if we do for others. We must give of ourselves today in order to receive a great tomorrow. Thank you.
Thank you, Greg and Tova. Next, we have reflection by Lois Smith-Owens. And there's a correction. Lois is not a faculty member. She is administrative personnel. Can I have Lois Owens Smith come up, please?
Thank you, and good morning to all of you. Good morning as privileged guests, because we are privileged to be here today. We're privileged because we're alive, we're awake, we're here, and we're honoring Dr. King. Since I've been asked to speak about Dr. King, I'd like to start with some of those questions that are most often posed when we speak of his legacy. We say, what would Dr. King want us to do now? What would Dr. King do? Where do we go from here? Some people have even said WMD. What would Martin do? Well, I don't do that one because I think he deserves the title of Dr. King. Here are my beliefs. I believe that Dr. King delivered perhaps some of the most powerful words ever spoken. An example would be, a strong man is one who can withstand opposition and not retaliate. And those of us who were here then watched the black people throughout this nation of the South not retaliate when struck while they sat at protest demonstrations and sit-ins. Dr. King said, if a man has not discovered something to die for, he is not fit to live. I believe Dr. King would demand strength from us, and that he recognized that most of us have not tapped into the incredible strengths that each of us has been endowed with. With his words, Dr. King roused the conscience of the nation. He provoked the moral and political leaders of our nation, and his message remained the same. Keep believing that now is the time. Every day is the time. Always is the time. Dr. King on many occasions stated that we as a nation are bonded inextricably to one another in that we cannot go forward one at a time. There must be togetherness. We must be the change. And we demonstrated this in 2008 as we elected an African American as president of this nation. And I believe Dr. King would have said, well done. And when we would ask, what do I do? How can I help? Dr. King would say, anybody can serve. You don't have to have a college degree to serve. You don't have to make your subject and your verb agree. You don't have to know about Plato and Aristotle to serve. He would tell us, you need only a heart full of grace, a soul generated by love, and you can be that servant. I believe Dr. King would remind us that we have made changes, important changes. We no longer have signs that designate where we sit, where we can ride, what water we can drink. Dr. King reminded us that black, white, red, brown, and yellow children sit together in classrooms, and he defined it as the symphony of brotherhood. I believe that today Dr. King would tell us that we have gone too far to turn back, that we still have a date with destiny. I believe that in his everyday life, Dr. King demonstrated the messages to us, and that in his speeches, he left a roadmap of directions for us to follow. When he spoke of world issues, he said, let us be dissatisfied until our brothers of the third world of Asia, Africa, and Latin America will no longer be victims of imperialist exploitation. When he addressed issues of race relations in this United States, he said to us, and specifically to my brothers and sisters, let us not seek to satisfy our thirst for freedom by drinking from the cup of bitterness and hatred. When he spoke of warring between the nations of the world, he said, God didn't call America to engage in a senseless, unjust war as the war is in Vietnam. I believe Dr. King would tell us there are still difficult days ahead. And when we would struggle with one another, he would say to us, I say to you, I love you. I would rather die than hate you. And when we would ask Dr. King, how long? Dr. King would answer, how long? Not long. Because the arc of the moral universe is long, but it bends toward justice. In fact, it is not so much in his most revered I Have a Dream speech that he gives us directions, but in the drum major instinct speech that he gave us specific directions regarding not only what he did do, but what he would have us do. He begins by telling us what he wanted said at his funeral. He said, I'd like somebody to mention that day that Martin Luther King tried to give his life serving others. I'd like for somebody to say that day that Martin Luther King Jr. tried to love somebody. I want you to say that day that I tried to be right on the war question. I want you to say that day that I did try to feed the hungry, and I want you to be able to say that day that I did try in my life to clothe those who were naked. I want you to say on that day that I did try in my life to visit those who were in prison. I want you to say that I tried to love and serve humanity. Yes, if you want to say that I was a drum major, say that I was a drum major for justice, that I was a drum major for peace, that I was a drum major for righteousness. Dr. King finished that speech that day with, I just want to be there in love and in justice and in truth and in commitment to others so that we can make of this old world a new world. And so I close with these words. I believe if we want to know what Dr. King would have us do, first read his speeches, then listen to your heart, then do. Thank you.
Thank you, Lois Smith-Owens. Before I call up Dr. Jeanne Arnold, I would like to give a big thanks to Cisco, who donated much of the food this morning, as well as they also talked to their different vendors to donate to the breakfast as well. So I think George Powell is here. George, are you here? George, thanks Cisco. Also next, I would like to have all the volunteers who came out this morning to help serve this morning for the MLK breakfast. Would you please stand up, all the student help, all student help. Some of the students had class this morning. We appreciate the time that they were able to give us. And, you know, my heart has been touched all weekend because of the young people, because I really believe, and when we talked this past Saturday, that the young people are going to take this torch and they're going to do some wonderful things in the future. And I just believe that in my heart. I would like to bring Dr. Arnold up to give her closing remarks, and I want to thank her for her vision on elevating the MLK program. Dr. Arnold.
Good morning and happy Dr. King Day to all of you. This university-wide breakfast is really just the beginning of some exciting new changes that you're going to be seeing as we expand our annual celebration of Dr. Martin Luther King. Sometime this spring, in the next month or two, we will pull together what we're calling a university-wide MLK Executive Planning Committee. This will be the body, faculty, staff, and student volunteers to plan next year's celebration and ongoing celebrations into the future. This is going to be a huge undertaking. The Office of Multicultural Affairs cannot do this on their own, so we will be looking for all of you to volunteer. We'll be looking to have a faculty member, perhaps co-chair this Executive Planning Committee with the Office of Multicultural Affairs. And there will be multiple subcommittees under this body that will need chairs. Committees such as academic programs. We want to really develop an academic arm to this celebration. Symposia that might last a week or two as we move forward. So an academic program subcommittee, an awards subcommittee so that we can recognize those who are living the vision of Dr. King. We will have a community service committee and also a committee to look at other community collaborations as we now have with GRCC. That will change a little bit in the future, but we want to still have a strong community connection. And we'll also have a subcommittee that will take a look at that question that continues to come to me each year about whether or not the university should be open or closed. We will have a subcommittee study this issue, develop a position paper, make some recommendations to the university. So we're going to cover all bases, but we can't do it without you. So we will be looking for all of you, faculty, staff, and students from across the university, to let us know how you want to help. The other thing I'd like to say about today is that this program that right now is just here and downtown will be transported this afternoon to our regional centers. We are not leaving them out. This is a university-wide celebration. So they will receive this program on iTunes this afternoon, and they will either this afternoon or later in the week bring their faculty, staff, and students together with refreshments to have a similar celebration. So we truly are one university around inclusion and diversity issues. So we want you to keep that in mind. President already mentioned, please come to our events later today. The march, as well as the speaker this afternoon, are LIB 100 approved events, so you should know that. And so we expect to have an excellent crowd this afternoon as well. And if you have time and your schedule permits, there will be a program at 6:30 p.m. tonight at GRCC. So there's no shortage of ways for us to engage, and really, again, this is just the beginning of what we're going to be doing together. So now, as we have our final closeout, we're really honored to have Cassania Carter-Pugh from Kirkhof College of Nursing to come and share a selection with us. And from there, please enjoy your Dr. King Day. Thank you.
Good morning, everyone. When Dr. King, when Dr. Arnold asked me to do this, I had to think about what the occasion was and what I needed to do in the mission before me. So this right here is an awesome sight to see. And again, if Dr. King were alive and still here, he would definitely be pleased. So what I'm going to ask you to do right now is imagine that Dr. King is standing here and getting ready to sing to you. And what I would need you to do in order to do that, because I am female, is to close your eyes and meditate and to imagine if he were here, he would be sharing these words with you. So please meditate. If you believe within your heart, you'll know that no one can change the places you must go. Believe what you feel and know you're right. Because the time will come around when you'll say it's yours. Believe that you can go home. Believe you can float on air. Believe to be, if you believe, then you'll be there. Believe in yourself
one last thing before you go. Can I have all of the committee members from this past year, if you would stand up, all committee members, MLK committee members, if you're here, please stand up. Thank you so much. It takes definitely a committee in order to pull something like this off. Look forward to seeing you at 1:45, the silent march. Thank you.